Leadership is often viewed through the lens of strengths, confidence, decisiveness, intelligence, resilience, vision. These are the qualities we celebrate in leaders. But some of the greatest leadership challenges are not the qualities we lack. They are the behaviors we fail to see in ourselves. These hidden behaviors are called leadership blind spots, and they quietly sabotage teams every single day. They damage morale. They weaken trust. They reduce innovation. They increase burnout. They create disengagement. And the most dangerous part is this: leaders often have absolutely no idea they are doing it. For women in leadership, this becomes even more complex. Many women leaders are navigating impossible expectations. Be warm but authoritative. Be confident but not intimidating. Be collaborative but decisive. Be strong but not too much. Over time, many women unconsciously develop leadership habits rooted in overfunctioning, perfectionism, emotional suppression, micromanagement, or conflict avoidance. These patterns may initially help women succeed professionally, but eventually they can damage the very teams they are trying to lead. Research by organizational psychologist Dr. Tasha Eurich found that while most people believe they are self-aware, only about 10 to 15% truly are. And self-awareness is one of the strongest predictors of leadership effectiveness. Leaders who lack self-awareness are more likely to create disengaged teams, poor communication patterns, and higher employee turnover. In contrast, leaders with greater self-awareness create psychological safety, stronger collaboration, and healthier workplace cultures. The challenge is that leadership blind spots are often invisible to the leader, while highly visible to everyone else. Your team sees them, your culture feels them, your organization absorbs the cost of them. Today, I want to walk through the most common leadership blind spots that sabotage teams, especially for women leaders, and discuss how to fix them using evidence-based leadership strategies, emotional intelligence, and practical communication tools you can begin using immediately. Let's start with one of the most dangerous blind spots in leadership today: the leader who manages up beautifully but leads down poorly. This is the employee who looks exceptional to senior leadership. They hit deadlines. They speak confidently in executive meetings. They appear polished, proactive, and aligned with organizational goals. But underneath that polished exterior, their team is exhausted. Research published in the Journal of Applied Psychology shows that abusive or toxic supervision often goes unnoticed because these individuals are highly skilled at impression management. They know how to manage up while creating fear and dysfunction below them. This creates what some leadership experts call the upward star, downward scar. The executive team sees performance. The employees experience anxiety. This is one of the reasons leadership blind spots are so dangerous. Results can temporarily hide dysfunction. You may have a leader with outstanding metrics but terrible retention, strong productivity but low morale, excellent executive communication but constant turnover. That is not sustainable leadership. So how do we fix this? One evidence-based strategy is implementing skip-level meetings. Once a quarter, meet directly with employees 2 levels below you without their manager present. And ask questions like, what is one thing making your job harder right now? What support do you wish you had? What's something leadership may not be seeing? Another strategy is using anonymous 360-degree reviews, where feedback from direct reports becomes part of leadership evaluations. And watch for siloed success. If one department consistently delivers results but also has the highest burnout, highest turnover, or lowest promotion rate, you may not have a high-performing leader. You may have a fear-based culture. Now let's talk about another major blind spot: micromanagement disguised as high standards. Many women leaders fall into this trap unintentionally because they worked incredibly hard to earn credibility. They became detail-oriented, responsible, reliable, hyper-prepared, and over time, responsibility can quietly evolve into control. Micromanagement rarely comes from arrogance. It often comes from anxiety, fear of failure, fear of mistakes, fear of judgment, fear of losing credibility. But research consistently shows that autonomy is one of the strongest drivers of employee motivation and engagement. Self-determination theory, developed by psychologists Edward Deci and Richard Ryan, identifies autonomy as one of the three basic psychological needs required for intrinsic motivation. When leaders over-control, employees stop thinking independently. They stop taking initiative. They become hesitant. They seek permission constantly. They lose confidence. And eventually, they stop bringing forward ideas altogether. You may be micromanaging if employees constantly ask for approval before making small decisions. You frequently redo people's work. Your team rarely surprises you with innovation. You feel anxious when delegating. One example might be a leader who insists on reviewing every external email before it is sent. On the surface, it looks like quality control, but underneath, it communicates, "I don't trust your judgment." Over time, employees stop trusting themselves too. So what do we do instead? We delegate authority, not just tasks. Instead of saying, "Send me every update," try saying, "Let's create checkpoints at key milestones." Instead of, "Here's exactly how to do it," try, "What approach do you think would work best?" One powerful concept is the 70% rule. If someone can do the task 70% as well as you can today, delegate it, because their growth matters more than your temporary perfection. Strong leaders do not create dependency, they create capability. Now let's discuss another major blind spot. Assuming silence means agreement. Many leaders mistakenly believe that quiet teams are aligned teams, but silence often reflects fear, disengagement, confusion, or emotional withdrawal. Research from Harvard professor Amy Edmondson on psychological safety found that the highest performing teams are not the teams with the smartest people. They are the teams where people feel safe speaking honestly. Without psychological safety, employees hide mistakes, innovation decreases, problems escalate quietly, resentment builds, burnout increases. Google's Project Aristotle found that psychological safety was the single most important factor in high-performing teams. Not intelligence, not seniority, not talent. Psychological safety. Unfortunately, leaders unintentionally shut down communication all the time, interrupting, reacting defensively, moving too quickly, rewarding only outspoken voices, dismissing concerns unintentionally. Women leaders may especially struggle here because many feel pressure to appear highly competent and decisive at all times. But when leaders dominate conversations, employees stop contributing. One example is a leader who always entered meetings with immediate solutions. She believed she was being efficient, but eventually her team stopped offering ideas because they assumed she already had all the answers. The result? Less creativity, less ownership, less engagement. So how do we fix this? Start asking better questions. Instead of, "Everyone good with this?" Ask, "What concerns might we be overlooking? Who sees this differently? What risks should we discuss?" And then pause. Do not rush to fill the silence. Silence often means people are thinking. Another powerful strategy is normalizing imperfection. Say things like, "I may not have handled that perfectly. I'd love feedback on this. What am I missing here?" Leaders who admit mistakes create safer cultures and intentionally invite quieter voices into the conversation. Sarah, I'd really value your perspective. What haven't we considered yet? Psychological safety is not lowering standards, it is increasing trust. Now let's talk about conflict avoidance. This is an enormous issue for women leaders. Many women are socialized to prioritize harmony, emotional caretaking, and likability. So difficult conversations become emotionally loaded. Women leaders may over-soften feedback, over-explain decisions, avoid accountability conversations, delay addressing poor performance. But avoiding conflict does not eliminate problems. It magnifies them. Research consistently shows unresolved workplace conflict decreases productivity, engagement, and well-being. Employees need clarity. When leaders avoid difficult conversations, teams become anxious because expectations are unclear. Here's what assertive communication actually sounds like. Instead of, "I'm sorry, but maybe if you have time," say, "This needs to be completed by Friday." Instead of avoiding poor performance, address it early. One evidence-based communication framework is this. Describe the behavior, explain the impact, clarify expectations, collaborate on solutions. For example, when deadlines are missed, it affects the entire project timeline. Moving forward, I need earlier communication if challenges arise. Let's discuss what support would help. Notice the difference: clear, respectful. Direct. Assertiveness is not aggression, it is clarity with respect. Now let's discuss perfectionism. Perfectionism is often rewarded professionally, especially among women leaders, but perfectionism quietly destroys innovation. Perfectionistic leaders often struggle to delegate, fear vulnerability, criticize excessively, overwork constantly, create unrealistic standards. Research links perfectionism to anxiety, emotional exhaustion, and burnout. And perfectionistic cultures create fear-based teams. Employees stop experimenting, they stop taking risks, they become afraid of mistakes. But innovation requires psychological safety. So leaders must shift from perfection to progress. Instead of asking, how do we avoid mistakes? Ask, what can we learn from this? Reward learning, reward experimentation, celebrate growth, and model vulnerability yourself. One of the most powerful things a leader can say is, I don't have all the answers. That creates trust. Now let's talk about another blind spot that quietly damages organizations. Prioritizing productivity over people. Many leaders become intensely focused on performance metrics, deadlines, efficiency, and output. And while results matter, teams cannot sustain performance without emotional support and human connection. Gallup research shows burned-out managers significantly increase burnout risk among employees. Leadership stress spreads emotionally. When leaders operate in survival mode, empathy declines, recognition disappears, communication becomes transactional, teams feel emotionally unsupported. Employees do not simply leave organizations, they leave leadership cultures. You may have this blind spot if meetings only focus on tasks. Recognition is rare. Morale feels low despite strong productivity. Employees seem emotionally withdrawn. One example is a healthcare leader during staffing shortages who focused exclusively on operational efficiency. Productivity remained high temporarily, but emotional exhaustion skyrocketed. Eventually, turnover increased dramatically. So how do we fix this? Leadership is relational. Small behaviors matter. Start meetings with human connection. How is everyone doing this week? What support would help most right now? What challenges are coming up? And recognize effort specifically instead of, good job. Try. I appreciated how calmly you handled that difficult conversation. Specific recognition improves morale because people want to feel seen, and leaders must model healthy boundaries. Do not glorify overwork. Do not praise exhaustion as commitment. Do not normalize constant availability. Healthy leaders create healthier teams. Now let's discuss another dangerous blind spot: tolerating underperformance because you want to be liked. This often comes from a good heart. Leaders confuse niceness with kindness, but tolerating poor performance damages high performers the most. Research from Eagle Hill Consulting found that 44% of employees say underperformers lower overall team morale, and 30% say it increases stress for everyone else. High performers do not thrive in cultures where mediocrity is tolerated. One helpful framework here is what I call grace and truth. Truth sounds like, I've noticed deadlines are consistently being missed, and it's affecting the team workflow. Grace sounds like, I value your contributions, and I want to help you succeed. Then create a clear path forward. Moving forward, I need earlier communication if deadlines are at risk. What support would help? And here's the difficult truth. If behavior does not improve, leaders must enforce standards, because what you permit, you promote. Now let's discuss emotional intelligence versus tactical output. Some organizations reward leaders who hit every KPI, but emotionally exhaust everyone around them. These are the leaders who achieve results while leaving burnout behind them. Harvard Business Review research found that leaders who focus only on results without emotional intelligence are significantly less effective long-term than leaders who balance both. Why? Because high-stress environments create cognitive narrowing. When people are constantly stressed, creativity decreases. problem solving weakens, innovation declines. Fear is not sustainable fuel. One of the best things organizations can do is measure cultural return on investment, calculate the financial cost of turnover, measure psychological safety, conduct stay interviews instead of exit interviews. Ask your top performers, what would make you leave this company tomorrow? Their answers reveal leadership blind spots very quickly. Now, I want to end with something important. Leadership growth begins with self awareness, not shame, not perfection. Awareness. Ask yourself, what energy do I bring into meetings? Do people feel safe disagreeing with me? Am I creating growth or dependency? Am I leading from fear or clarity? Do I value control more than trust? And create systems for feedback. Find truth tellers. Invite dissent. Normalize honest conversations. One powerful strategy is assigning someone in meetings the role of the dissenter. Their job is to challenge assumptions and identify flaws in the plan. This breaks the cycle of performative agreement. And remember this, you can have control or you can have growth. But you cannot have both. True leadership is not about being the smartest person in the room. It is about building a room full of people empowered to think, contribute, innovate, and grow. Because everyone wins when the leader gets better. And leadership blind spots are not permanent flaws. They are invitations to evolve. The leaders who change organizations are not the leaders who pretend to have all the answers. They are the leaders courageous enough to look honestly in the mirror, identify what is no longer serving the team, and choose growth anyway. That is what real leadership looks like. And that is how healthy cultures are built. Make sure to like, subscribe, and grab my free leadership workbook, 5 Steps to Communicate with Calm, Clarity, and Confidence at powerofpeacefulness.com. Until next time, take a deep breath. Embrace the present moment and keep walking your path to peace.